Hello everyone, here psst.one. Today we start our series about the TouchDesigner Summit 2018. It was here in Berlin a couple of weekends ago. We start with Richard Burns, the guy that founded the TouchDesigner help group on Facebook that now reach around 6,000 subscribers. He is the TouchDesigner guy at Projection Artworks studio in London, but you will see all this stuff. So, enjoy! How did you start with visuals?
I started at Northumbria University in Newcastle. So my lecturer was a Houdini user who had used TouchDesigner before for a bit of sort of real-time stuff, and he didn't know how to use it, but he kind of said we had a VJ module on my course, and he basically said you can use Resolume and take the sort of easier option, or you can use TouchDesigner and take the slightly more sort of complex option. And me being more of a technical kind of want to try new things out, sort of started using TouchDesigner. So that was the beginning. There was about 5 of us and no learning material. We had to like just guess. This is back in 2000, and yeah, so that was. I kind of started. I'd never even heard of VJing before until I started using Touch, and then everyone else was doing this like VJ thing. So I kind of started doing a few gigs and sort of using Touch to build, sort of simple sort of mixing and real time. I never really used video loops. I always kind of made my own like sort of synths and weird sort of particle systems and so on. And then yeah, then eventually I moved to London after all of that. But that was when I stopped VJing.
Your main software is TouchDesigner. When did you choose this software?
For me, I started out with motion graphics, Maya, and Houdini. And Houdini was something that I started with before TouchDesigner. So I knew Houdini really well, and I'd used Unity to a degree because Unity was sort of kind of okay for doing stuff in, but not really the best. So I knew of like there was new processing, but TouchDesigner kind of had this. Well, the node-based, obviously, the node-based workflow is so much easier to use. And I think for me, it was kind of more a finished product. A lot of things at that time, back in 2009, were still sort of quite shaky. Quartz Compose, I think, had just been discontinued, or it was about to be discontinued, so didn't seem like a good idea to go down that route. 4V, I literally didn't even know how to install, and every time I tried, it didn't work. So I ended up basically using Touch. For those reasons, and then and it was very quick to learn and very quick to get into, and there was this sort of, when you're working in it, you kind of throw away more than you actually, you don't make if you make 1 minute clip in After Effects, you keep that 1 minute clip. In TouchDesigner, you could work for an hour and you've thrown away loads of really good stuff, but then you've got something that you think is better at the end of it. So it was kind of that experimental sort of thing that kept me into it. So.
You are part of the studio Projection Artwork based in London. How did you start with them?
I was working on my own. I was working with another guy in Newcastle. We were doing projections, so we did a Lumiere festival up in Durham, and we kind of we used TouchDesigner for that, and because I was kind of quite involved in the community, making tutorials and so on in TouchDesigner, but my job was actually more web design back then. I was doing a lot of web design, and I then kind of got sick of doing that and started applying for jobs at games companies. There's a lot of games companies in Newcastle, so I was kind of thought maybe that would be a good place to start. And then one day I got an interview for a games company, and I came home, answered my phone, and it was Tom Birch from Projection Artworks saying, "Hey, why don't you come down to London and we can talk?" And so I said, okay. So I was already going to London that week, so I went down to London. He said, "What do you want to do? Like, do you want to freelance for us, or do you want to do something else?" And I said, "Well, actually, I'm kind of looking for a full-time job at the moment." So we did a sort of trial for 3 months, and I think after about 2 weeks, it was like, yeah, it's fine. This is gonna be a long relationship. We'll keep it going. So yeah, so I've been there for 5-6 years now. So it's a long time.
You have also a blog, visualesk.org. Why?
Visualesque is my sort of, I guess my way of giving back to the community and like kind of posting. So I have some tutorials on there. I sort of experiment with, I think the last article was about building a custom MIDI controller or something. Yeah, so that was my friend's birthday present. So we kind of made that as a joke. It started off as a joke. Wouldn't it be funny if we made something? And then it kind of turned into a project. And actually, myself and my wife have started finding that we're kind of, quite a lot of the time, we're coming up with ideas for projects as jokes, and then they're turning into sort of, we'll be in the pub saying, oh, why don't we make a project that's like some crazy, we did one which was like, why don't we make a project that's like a crazy thread thing, and you have to like navigate like the thread with a projection and keep it all, and we track it all in real time, and we thought that was sort of fun. And then we ended up actually building it and sending it to a festival or whatever. And so Visual is kind of my own, have fun, do what I want, post articles about things, and just kind of help out with, you know, other people in the community, mainly helping them. So,
do you never think about to do a solo career?
Kind of not. For me, my own projects, the problem with career and project is that if you want to be an artist, there's not a lot of money in it, and if you want to be an advertiser, you don't get any say in what you're doing. I like to just do things in my spare time for the fun of it, and then I can do what I want. So that's kind of my philosophy on that. I earn my money doing the advertising, working with PA, and then I do things, exhibitions on the side. So I did there was a computer games festival in London. We did a sort of small project for, which was that thread sort of thing called Thread Racer, where you just played like a racing game, and but it was all very physical and sort of made in TouchDesigner. So yeah, I kind of look more towards, I guess, the idea of just playing around and having fun rather than, you know, making a serious sort of side to it.
Are you working on any project?
My main ambition at the moment in TouchDesigner is to build, you know, this media server, or this sort of like, you know, tool set that people can use to build shows and to kind of help bring a little bit more of a workflow that works in other software. Try to bring that into TouchDesigner so it doesn't seem like the horrible, scary, you know, because quite a lot of people in Resolume forums or whatever go, oh my god, this TouchDesigner is way too complicated, you know, I can't learn it. And if they had the tools there, like, to help them learn and at least get them making shows quickly, then that would be, I guess, a good thing. So I'm kind of building a lot of little tools at the moment which do that, little things that can help people sort of progress forward and, you know, sort of get them building shows quicker, because if you try to do everything yourself at the beginning, it's quite hard. Like, I mean, I think my first show, I think I had like a window component, like, which opened from in the completely wrong way, that you wouldn't do it in that way, and I just kind of had lots of SOPs like all moving and all doing stuff, and it was really heavy and slow and it wouldn't run. So it's nice if you can, you know, use these little tools. If you have a problem, you can go onto the forums, whatever, but it's there. So Idzard's helping a lot with that now with Chop Chop Chop. That's going to be a good sort of platform to put these things on and get people starting to use TouchDesigner, even if they don't necessarily know how to use TouchDesigner. If people can use TouchDesigner without knowing how to use it, so if they could use a tool in TouchDesigner for a show, then actually that's almost teaching them about it once because at some point they'll go, oh, that tool's really good, but what if it had this? And then they'll go into the tool, they'll hit escape, and oh look, they can modify the whole thing. And suddenly that will get people, I think beginners who don't know TouchDesigner very well, it will help them go in, and it will get rid of the fear of this sort of, oh, there's nodes everywhere, the stigma. I think if there were very simple components, not like huge things, but simple things that could help people make simple shows. So on the Visualesque website, I have one which is, I think it's called Spout Kit, which is basically some very simple TouchDesigner visuals but they spout out into Resolute. So you don't have to learn all the big complicated part of show control and TouchDesigner. You just open it up and it sends out real-time stuff to Resolute. So you can use Resolute and Touch and you learn, the easy way.
Is there a release date for this patch?
That's difficult. So the pre-visualization stuff is released. It's been released for ages actually, but no one's had access to that website. It's released for like Keith and it's a few people. Yeah, no, it's kind of that's released. That's just a projector. I think about 4 or 5 other people have made them as well, so it's quite a simple thing. But it's just kind of showing how that workflow works, how you can stick things together and that will probably become sort of that technique for just doing quick previs will probably now become a standard thing, so that's going to help people along the way. So it's not so much about giving them the whole thing and saying this is, because the whole thing is very scary. Like the media, if you hand someone a massive piece of software and say, here you go, you can do what you want with it, people will go, well, I don't know what I'm doing. But if you give them little bits of it for their use in their own projects, then they can kind of learn it without needing to be used the whole thing.